Beneath the dust of forgotten empires, there are objects that should not exist, machines that predate their invention by 1,000 years, maps that show coastlines no ancient sailor could have seen, stones moved by methods we cannot replicate even today. These are not legends. They are real, physical, touchable, and completely impossible. 50 times, archaeologists have unearthed something that shatters everything we thought we knew about the past. 50 times, science has stood at the edge of an answer and found only deeper questions. What if the story of human civilization is not what we've been told? What if the ancients knew something we've forgotten? For centuries, we've been digging into the earth, pulling back the layers of time like pages in a book written in stone and bone. Archaeology promised us answers. It promised to show us where we came from, how we evolved, how we built our first cities and dreamed our first dreams. And for the most part, it delivered. We traced the rise of Egypt, the glory of Rome, the mysteries of the Maya. We thought we had the timeline figured out. Bronze Age, Iron Age, the slow march of progress from caves to skyscrapers. But then we found things that didn't fit. A gear system in a Roman shipwreck more complex than anything made for another 1,500 years. A battery in ancient Mesopotamia. Footprints that shouldn't exist. Structures built with precision that baffles modern engineers. At first, these were dismissed as flukes, misidentifications, hoaxes. But they kept coming, one after another. Dozens of them, each one verified, examined, carbon dated, and confirmed. And still, no explanation. What you're about to hear are not conspiracy theories. These are recognized archaeological finds, sitting in museums, documented in scientific journals, debated in academic halls. They are mysteries because even with all our technology, all our knowledge, all our certainty about the past, we cannot explain them. Some challenge the timeline of human innovation. Others suggest contact between civilizations that should never have met. A few hint at knowledge so advanced, so out of place, that they force us to question whether we really understand our ancestors at all. So let's walk through them. 50 mysteries, 50 unanswered questions, 50 cracks in the story we tell ourselves about history. And maybe, just maybe, by the end, you'll see the past a little differently. It starts with a single question. What happens when an archaeologist finds something that shouldn't be there? Not just rare, not just unexpected, but genuinely, scientifically, historically impossible. That moment happened in 1901, off the coast of a small Greek island. Divers searching a shipwreck pulled up a corroded lump of bronze. Inside it, barely visible through 2,000 years of rust and ocean, were gears. Dozens of them. Interlocking, precise, deliberate. It was a machine, a computer, built before the fall of Rome, before the birth of Christ, before anyone, according to everything we know, should have had the knowledge to create such a thing. That was mystery number one. But it wasn't the last. In the decades since, we've found stone spheres carved with mathematical perfection by people who supposedly didn't know mathematics. We found batteries that produce electricity in cultures that had no concept of circuits. We found evidence of metallurgy, chemistry, astronomy, and engineering in times and places where they simply should not exist. Each discovery sits like a puzzle piece that doesn't belong to the picture. And the more we find, the stranger the picture becomes. This is not a list of curiosities. This is a catalog of impossibilities, 50 of them. And every single one is real. Mystery number one, the Antikythera Mechanism. Let's begin where it all began, the Antikythera Mechanism. When scientists finally X-rayed that corroded bronze lump from the Greek shipwreck, they couldn't believe what they saw. Inside were at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, calibrated to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It could predict eclipses. It could calculate the timing of the ancient Olympic Games. It was, in every sense, the world's first analog computer. The engineering required to build it wouldn't be seen again until the 14th century. Here's the problem. It was built around 100 BC. The ancient Greeks were brilliant, yes, but this level of mechanical sophistication doesn't appear anywhere else in their record. No prototypes, no instruction manuals, no other examples. It's as if someone dropped a smartphone into the Renaissance. Where did this knowledge come from? And if they could build this, what else could they build that we haven't found yet? Mystery number 2. The Voynich manuscript. Now imagine a book. Not just any book, but a manuscript filled with illustrations of plants that don't exist, astronomical charts that match no known system, and page after page of writing in a language no one has ever seen. That's the Voynich manuscript. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, it's written in an unknown script, an unknown language, depicting an unknown world. Codebreakers who cracked Nazi Enigma machines have tried to decipher it. Linguists, historians, computer algorithms, all have failed. Some believe it's a lost language. Others think it's an elaborate hoax. But here's the thing. Hoaxes usually reveal themselves. Patterns emerge. Mistakes show up. The Voynich manuscript has none. It follows linguistic rules. It has structure. It has meaning. We just don't know what that meaning is. And after 600 years, we still can't read a single word. Mystery number 3. Göbekli Tepe. In southeastern Turkey, on a windswept hill, lies a temple older than civilization itself. Göbekli Tepe. Massive stone pillars, some weighing 20 tons, arranged in circular formations and covered with intricate carvings of animals. The shock? It was built around 9600 BC. That's 6,000 years before Stonehenge. 4,000 years before the pyramids. It was constructed by hunter-gatherers who, according to every textbook, should have been living in small nomadic groups, barely surviving. Yet somehow these people organized labor forces, quarried massive stones, carved detailed artwork, and built a religious complex of staggering sophistication. They did all this before they invented pottery, before they domesticated animals, before they farmed. Göbekli Tepe suggests that our entire understanding of how civilization developed might be backwards. What if religion came first? What if the need to gather and worship drove us to settle, to build, to become what we are? Mystery number 4. The Pyramids of Giza. Construction method. Everyone knows the pyramids, but ask an engineer how they were built, and you'll get a shrug wrapped in theories. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains roughly 3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 70 tons. They're fitted together so precisely that you can't slide a credit card between them. No mortar, no room for error, and it was built, supposedly, in just 20 years. Do the math. That means setting one block every 2.5 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 2 decades, with copper tools. No wheels, no pulleys as we know them. Theories range from ramps to levers, to water shafts to alien intervention. None fully explain the logistics, the precision, or the speed. The ancient Egyptians left behind records of their gods, their kings, their daily lives, but not a single blueprint, not one construction manual. If we tried to replicate the Great Pyramid today using the tools they supposedly had, we'd fail. So how did they do it? Mystery number 5. Stonehenge massive stones standing in a circle on the plains of England. Stonehenge. Some of the stones weigh 25 tons. But here's the mystery. They didn't come from nearby. The blue stones were transported over 150 miles from Wales. We're talking about Neolithic people, around 3000 BC, moving multi-ton stones across rivers, hills, and forests without wheels or metal tools. Why? Astronomical observatory? Religious site? Healing temple? We know it aligns with the solstices. We know people gathered there. We know they buried their dead nearby. But the effort required to build it seems almost insane for a primitive society. Unless, of course, they weren't as primitive as we think. What drove them to move mountains, literally, to build this place? Mystery number 6. The Nazca lines high in the deserts of southern Peru, etched into the dry earth, are enormous drawings. Animals, plants, geometric shapes. some stretching over 1,000 feet. The Nazca Lines. Created between 500 BC and 500 AD, they're so large you can only see them properly from the air, which raises an immediate question. Why would a people without flight create art that can only be appreciated from the sky? Some say they're offerings to gods who watched from above. Others believe they're astronomical calendars. A few suggest they're runways for ancient aircraft. The lines are so precise, so mathematically aligned, that modern surveyors are impressed. They've survived for over 2,000 years because of the unique climate. But their purpose? Still a mystery. And the fact that the Nazca people spent generations creating them suggests they had a reason we just can't grasp. Mystery number 7. The Moai of Easter Island. On one of the most remote islands on Earth, nearly 1,000 giant stone heads stand silent watch. The Moai of Easter Island. Some weigh over 80 tons. They were carved from volcanic rock using primitive stone tools, then transported miles across rough terrain to stand on ceremonial platforms. The island's population at the time was maybe a few thousand people. The effort required to create and move these statues would have consumed enormous resources. Here's the eerie part. Many moai were left unfinished in the quarry, tools scattered as if the workers just stopped. What happened? Did the society collapse, run out of resources, face some catastrophe? And how did they move statues that size in the first place? Theories range from log rollers to rocking motions to ropes and manpower, but no one has successfully demonstrated the exact method. The moai stand as monuments to ambition, mystery, and perhaps warning. Mystery Dri 8. The Baghdad Battery. In 1936, workers digging near Baghdad uncovered a small clay jar. Inside was a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Archaeologists dated it to around 200 BC during the Parthian Empire. When researchers replicated the design and filled it with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, it produced an electric current, a battery, 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta. Or, why would ancient Mesopotamians need electricity? Some suggest it was used for electroplating gold onto silver. Others think it was part of religious rituals, creating tingles or shocks to awe believers. Skeptics say it's just a storage jar and any electrical charge is coincidence. But the design is too specific, too functional. If it is a battery, it means the ancients understood principles of electrochemistry we didn't rediscover until the 18th century. And if they made one, how many others existed that we've never found? A mystery Natura 9. The Piri Reis Map. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis compiled a world map. Fragments of it survive today, and they show something extraordinary: the coastline of Antarctica. Not just roughly, but with remarkable accuracy. The map shows mountains, rivers, bays, details that match the land beneath Antarctica's ice that has covered the continent for millions of years. How did a 16th century mapmaker chart a coastline hidden under a mile of ice? Piri Reis claimed he used older maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. But even that doesn't explain it. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and the ice has been there far longer than human civilization, unless the map copies knowledge from a time when Antarctica was ice-free, which would push the date back over 6,000 years. Either way, someone saw that coastline, and we have no idea who. Mystery 10. The Sacsayhuaman Walls. Outside the ancient Incan city of Cusco, Peru, stands a fortress wall unlike any other, Sacsayhuaman. The stones are massive, some weighing over 200 tons. But the real mystery is how they fit together. The blocks are cut in irregular, interlocking shapes, no two alike, yet they fit so perfectly that not even a blade can slide between them. No mortar, no gaps. Just stone on stone, locked together like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. The Incas had no iron tools, no wheels, no written language to pass on engineering techniques, yet they shaped these gigantic stones with such precision that modern engineers can't figure out how. Some stones have dozens of angles, all matching perfectly with their neighbors. Laser-guided cutting couldn't do better. So how did they do it? And why go to such lengths when simpler construction would have been just as strong? Mystery Dash 11. The Dropa Stones. In 1938, an archaeologist named Chipu Te explored caves in the Bayankaraula Mountains on the border of China and Tibet. Inside he found graves, small skeletal remains, and hundreds of stone discs, the Dropa stones. Each disc was about 9 inches wide with a hole in the center and covered in tiny grooves that spiraled outward, like a record. In the 1960s, a scientist claimed to have translated the grooves as an ancient script. According to him, they told the story of a spacecraft that crashed 12,000 years ago. The survivors, called the Dropa, couldn't repair their ship and were stranded on Earth. Mainstream archaeology dismissed it as a hoax, but the discs are real. They've been photographed, analyzed, and some reportedly even tested for unusual properties. Whether the translation is real or fabricated, the discs themselves remain unexplained. What are they? Who made them? And why? Mystery Dash 12. The crystal skulls, polished quartz crystal, shaped into human skulls with hollow eyes and detailed teeth. The crystal skulls. Some claim they're ancient Mesoamerican artifacts with mystical powers. Museums displayed them for years as genuine pre-Columbian relics. Then modern testing revealed tool marks consistent with 19th century rotary tools. Hoaxes, right? Not so fast. A few skulls remain untested or show ambiguous results. And even if most are fake, the question becomes, why? Why did someone in the 1800s create these objects and attribute them to lost civilizations? What legend or knowledge were they referencing? And if even one skull predates modern tools, it would mean ancient craftsmen had a mastery of crystal carving we've never acknowledged. The debate continues. Some skulls sit in private collections, untested, and the mystery lingers. Mystery number 13. The London Hammer. In 1936, a couple hiking near London, Texas, found a rock with a piece of wood sticking out. When they cracked it open, they found an iron hammer with a wooden handle encased in solid stone. The rock was dated to over 100 million years old, long before humans existed. Creationists pointed to it as proof that Earth's timeline is wrong. Geologists argued the rock formation could have encased the hammer much more recently through a concretion process, but the hammer itself is strange. The iron is unusually pure, showing minimal corrosion. The wooden handle has partially petrified. Carbon dating has been inconclusive. So we're left with an object that seems modern, encased in ancient stone, with no clear explanation for how it got there. A time traveler's tool? A natural anomaly? Or proof that our understanding of geology and history has serious gaps? Mystery Dash 14. The Coso Artifact. In 1961, rockhounds searching for geodes in California's Coso Mountains cut open a rock and found something impossible. Inside was what looked like a spark plug, a ceramic core, metal components, and a mechanical structure. The rock was estimated to be 500,000 years old. Skeptics quickly identified the object as a 1920s champion spark plug, suggesting the rock formed around it naturally in just a few decades. But supporters argued the encasing stone shows signs of long-term fossilization. The original artifact has since been lost, so further testing is impossible. What we're left with is a photograph, conflicting testimonies, and a question. Can a recognizable mechanical object become encased in rock that appears ancient in less than a century? If yes, how many other ancient artifacts might be more recent than they seem? If no, then how did a spark plug end up in a 500,000-year-old stone? Mystery the First Touch. 15. The Dendera Light. In the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, there's a stone relief that has sparked decades of debate. It shows figures holding large bulbous objects that look strikingly like modern light bulbs. Inside the bulbs are wavy lines resembling filaments. A cable seems to connect them to a box that looks like a power source. The Dendera Light. Egyptologists say it's a symbolic representation of a lotus flower and a snake, common in Egyptian mythology. But engineers and alternative historians see electrical components. Could the ancient Egyptians have had electric lighting? Some point to the lack of soot in tomb paintings. How did they illuminate deep underground chambers while painting intricate details? Torches would have left residue. Mirrors reflecting sunlight only go so far. If they did have artificial light, it would explain a lot. But it would also rewrite everything we know about ancient technology. Mystery that Musser 16, the Ubaid lizard. People. In the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered strange figurines dating back to 5000 BC. The Ubaid culture left behind statues of humanoid figures with elongated heads, slanted eyes, and reptilian features. Some are clearly female, nursing reptilian babies. Others hold staffs or scepters, suggesting authority. Who or what do these represent? Gods? Priests in ceremonial masks? Literal depictions of a non-human race? Mainstream archaeology suggests they're symbolic, perhaps representing a fertility goddess or clan totems. But the consistency across multiple sites is eerie. The figures are always humanoid, always reptilian, always in positions of power or reverence. Ancient Sumerian texts speak of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens and taught humanity. Could these figurines be depicting them? Or is it just our modern imagination reading too much into ancient art? Mystery number 17. The Longyu Caves. In 1992, a local villager in Longyu County, China, decided to pump out water from a pond. What he found underneath was astonishing. A massive hand-carved cavern with walls, ceilings, and pillars covered in precise markings. Then they found another, and another. Eventually, 24 enormous man-made caves were discovered, covering over 30,000 square meters. The precision is remarkable. The walls are smooth and uniform. The pillars are evenly spaced. Yet there's no historical record of their construction. No mention in any Chinese text. No debris from the excavation, which would have involved removing nearly 1 million cubic meters of rock. Who built them? When? Why? And how did such a massive project remain completely undocumented? The Longyu Caves are one of the greatest archaeological enigmas in China, sitting right beneath a modern village, hidden in plain sight for potentially thousands of years. Mystery number 18. The Yonaguni Monument, off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, divers discovered a massive underwater structure in 1987. Terraces, platforms, carved steps, right angles, all at a depth of about 80 feet. The Yonaguni Monument. Some geologists believe it's a natural rock formation, shaped by erosion and tectonic activity, but others see tool marks, intentional design, and features that nature doesn't typically create. If it's man-made, it would have to have been built during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower, over 10,000 years ago. That predates known Japanese civilization by thousands of years. It would mean an advanced culture existed and was lost to rising seas. Proponents point to similar structures nearby and what appear to be carvings resembling animals and symbols. Skeptics say we're seeing patterns where none exist. The debate rages on, but the structure remains, silent beneath the waves, waiting for an answer. Mystery. 19. The Copper Scroll of the Dead Sea. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, one stands out, not written on parchment, but hammered into copper, the Copper Scroll. Unlike the religious texts found with it, this scroll is a list, a treasure map. It describes 64 locations where vast amounts of gold and silver are supposedly hidden, tons of it. The problem? The locations are vague, the landmarks long gone, and the treasure has never been found. Was it real? A fantasy? A coded message? Some believe it describes the hidden wealth of the Second Temple before the Romans destroyed it. Others think it's symbolic, a spiritual treasure rather than literal gold. But why use expensive copper to record a fiction? And why hide it with sacred texts? The Copper Scroll is a riddle wrapped in metal. offering riches to anyone who can decode it. So far, no one has. Mystery. 20. The Phaistos Disk. Found in the ruins of a Minoan palace on Crete, the Phaistos disk is a small clay disk covered in stamped symbols. Spiraling from the center outward, 241 symbols form a text in an unknown language. Dated to around 1700 BC, it's one of the oldest examples of movable type printing, a technique that wouldn't appear again for another 3,000 years. No other examples of this script have been found. Linguists have proposed dozens of translations, but none are universally accepted. Some symbols look like people, tools, plants, animals, but their meaning is lost. Was it a prayer, a story, a game, a calendar? The Phaistos disk remains one of archaeology's most elegant mysteries, a beautiful puzzle from the Bronze Age that refuses to be solved. Mystery. 21. The giant stone spheres of Costa Rica. In the Diquís Delta of Costa Rica, workers clearing jungle for banana plantations in the 1930s found something strange. Perfectly round stone spheres, some over 6 feet in diameter and weighing 16 tons. Hundreds of them. The giant stone spheres. They were made by the pre-Columbian Diquís culture between 600 and 1000 AD. The precision is stunning. Some are spherical to within a few millimeters, a feat that would challenge modern stone masons. How did a society without metal tools achieve this, and why? They don't seem to mark graves or align with stars. Some were arranged in patterns, but their meaning is lost. Many have been moved or destroyed over the years, further obscuring their purpose. The spheres sit in museums and town squares now, silent and perfect, their secret locked in stone. Mystery. 22. The Klerksdorp spheres. Miners in South Africa have found small metallic spheres embedded in mineral deposits dating back nearly 3 billion years. The Klerksdorp spheres. They're disc-shaped with 3 parallel grooves around the center. Some are made of a hard mineral called pyrite, others of a softer material. Geologists say they're natural formations, created by volcanic activity and mineral precipitation. But the grooves are suspiciously regular. The shapes are eerily uniform. And 3 billion years ago, Earth barely had an atmosphere, let alone intelligent life. Yet these spheres exist, and some appear too precise to be random. A museum curator once claimed one sphere rotated on its own inside a sealed case, debunked by scientists as vibration and imbalance. But the claim added to the legend. Are they natural? Almost certainly. But the almost is what keeps people wondering. Mystery. 23. The aluminum wedge of Aiud. In 1974, workers digging a trench near the Mureș River in Romania found 3 objects buried together. 2 were fossils. The third was a wedge-shaped piece of aluminum. Aluminum, a metal that requires industrial electrolysis to produce. The object was buried in sediment dated to between 11,000 and 250,000 years old. Tests showed the aluminum was alloyed with small amounts of copper, silicon, and other metals, suggesting it was manufactured, not natural. Skeptics argue it's modern debris that got buried recently, but the oxidation layer suggests it's old, very old. If it's genuinely ancient, it would imply advanced metallurgy long before the Bronze Age. If it's a hoax or misidentification, how did it get there? The wedge now sits in a museum in Cluj-Napoca, labeled as an artifact of unknown origin. No one wants to commit to an explanation. Mystery. 24. The Iron Pillar of Delhi. Standing in a courtyard in Delhi, India, is a 7-meter-tall iron pillar that has stood for over 1,600 years without rusting. The Iron Pillar of Delhi. It was forged during the Gupta Empire around 400 AD. Despite centuries of monsoons and humidity, the pillar shows almost no corrosion. Modern analysis reveals the iron is unusually pure and contains high levels of phosphorus, which forms a protective layer against rust. So it's not magic, it's metallurgy. But here's the mystery. How did ancient Indian smiths achieve such purity and precision? The pillar is a single, continuous piece of iron weighing over 6 tons. Forging it would require intense, sustained heat and expert craftsmanship. The techniques used were lost for centuries. It stands as a testament to knowledge we dismissed and only recently rediscovered. Mystery 25. The Roman dodecahedrons, scattered across Europe. Over 100 small bronze objects have been found, dating to the Roman Empire. They're 12-sided, hollow, with circular holes of varying sizes on each face and small knobs at the corners. Roman dodecahedrons. They're beautifully crafted, clearly important. And we have no idea what they were for. No Roman text mentions them. They're found in Gaul, Britain, and the Rhineland, but not in Rome itself. Theories range from surveying instruments to candle holders to dice to religious objects. Some suggest they were used to calibrate water pipes or measure distance. Others think they're toys or symbols of rank. But none of these theories fully explain the variety of sizes, the precise craftsmanship, or the lack of documentation. They're everywhere and nowhere in the historical record. A Roman mystery hiding in plain sight. Mystery 26. The unfinished obelisk of Aswan. In a granite quarry in Aswan, Egypt, lies the largest obelisk ever attempted. The unfinished obelisk. If completed, it would have stood 140 feet tall and weighed over 200 tons. But it was never finished. A crack appeared in the granite, and the project was abandoned. What's astonishing is the method of carving. Researchers found grooves and tool marks suggesting the ancient Egyptians used pounding stones, literally hammering granite with harder stones. It would have taken thousands of hours, unimaginable labor, and precision planning. Yet they did it over and over, producing dozens of obelisks. The unfinished one gives us a rare glimpse into their process. But it also raises questions. How did they plan to move something that heavy? How would they lift it? Modern cranes struggle with such weight. What did they know that we don't? Mystery 27. The Baalbek Stones. In Lebanon, the ancient city of Baalbek contains some of the largest stone blocks ever used in construction, the Baalbek Stones. 3 massive blocks, known as the Trilithon, each weigh approximately 800 tons. They sit 20 feet above ground, perfectly fitted into the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter. How did the Romans, or the Phoenicians, or whoever built the original structures, move and place these stones? There are no records, no diagrams, no descriptions. Modern construction equipment would struggle. Yet these stones were quarried, transported, lifted, and placed with such precision that they've stood for 2,000 years. Some researchers suggest earlier, pre-Roman construction. Others point to lost techniques. Either way, the stones are there. Solid, immovable, silent witnesses to an engineering feat we cannot replicate. Mystery de Rue 28. The Cockno Stone. In 1887, a large flat rock covered in intricate carvings was discovered near Glasgow, Scotland. The Cockno Stone. Dating back around 5,000 years, it's covered in spirals, circles, and cup and ring marks, symbols common in Neolithic Britain. But the meaning of these symbols is completely unknown. Were they maps, star charts, religious symbols, territorial markers? The patterns are too deliberate to be decorative, too widespread to be random. Similar carvings appear across Scotland, Ireland, and England, suggesting a shared culture or language. But we've lost the key. The Cockno Stone was buried again in the 1960s to protect it from vandalism. It was uncovered briefly in 2016 for laser scanning, then reburied. The data is still being analyzed, but so far, the symbols keep their secrets. Mystery. Verse 29. The mystery of Teotihuacan. Northeast of Mexico City lies Teotihuacan, one of the largest cities in the ancient world. At its peak around 500 AD, it housed over 100,000 people, massive pyramids, broad avenues, complex infrastructure. But here's the mystery. We don't know who built it. When the Aztecs arrived centuries later, the city was already abandoned. They named it Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were created. Because they believed it was so grand, only gods could have made it. No written records. No clear cultural connection to earlier or later civilizations. The people left no name for themselves. The pyramids align with astronomical events. The city layout mirrors the stars. But who the builders were, why they left, and where they went remains one of Mesoamerica's greatest mysteries. Mystery Chapter 30. The underwater city of Yonaguni, revisited. Let's return to the depths near Japan. Not just one structure, but an entire complex. Walls, terraces, steps, roads. Some researchers believe it's the remains of a lost civilization, drowned when sea levels rose after the Ice Age. Carvings that resemble animals, right angles that nature rarely produces, stone tools found nearby. But the ocean is deceptive. Erosion can mimic construction. Tectonic shifts can create step-like formations. Skeptics argue that humans see faces in clouds and meaning in chaos. Yet divers keep finding new features. A stone that looks like a face, another that resembles a turtle. Deliberate or coincidence? The ocean keeps the answer, and only those brave enough to dive can seek it. Mystery number 31. The Sajama Lines. In the Bolivian Andes, a network of perfectly straight lines crisscrosses the landscape for thousands of miles. The Sajama Lines. They're similar to the Nazca Lines, but far more extensive. Each line is created by scraping away dark surface rocks to reveal lighter soil beneath. Some stretch for over 12 miles in a perfectly straight line. Who made them? Why? The local Aymara people say their ancestors created them as sacred paths, connecting holy sites. But the effort required is staggering. Thousands of miles of lines across mountains and valleys, maintained over centuries. Some researchers suggest they're pilgrimage routes. Others think they're territorial markers. A few believe they align with celestial events. From the ground, they're almost invisible. From the air, they're a stunning geometric web. Another ancient mystery written on the earth itself. Mystery number 32. The White Shaman Rock Art. In the lower Pecos region of Texas, on a rock shelter wall, is a 4,000-year-old mural known as the White Shaman. It depicts humanoid figures, animals, and abstract symbols in vivid colors. Researchers believe it's a narrative, possibly describing a spiritual journey or creation myth. What makes it mysterious is the detail and preservation. The pigments have lasted millennia. The imagery is complex, layered, intentional. Recent studies using high-resolution photography reveal even more details invisible to the naked eye. It's a window into the minds of prehistoric people, but we can only guess at the story they were telling. The White Shaman speaks in a language of symbols and color. We can see it, we just can't fully understand it. Mystery. Chapter 33. The Antikythera Youth, not the Mechanism. Pulled from the same shipwreck as the famous Mechanism is a bronze statue known as the Antikythera Youth. It's a nearly life-sized figure of a young man, arm outstretched, possibly holding an object now lost. The craftsmanship is exquisite, but no one knows who it represents. Is it a hero? A god? A victorious athlete? The pose suggests he's offering something, perhaps a ball, an apple, or the head of Medusa. Art historians have debated for over a century. The statue is one of the finest examples of ancient Greek bronze work, but without context, it's a masterpiece without a story. Just like the mechanism found with it, the youth raises more questions than answers. Mystery, the 34. The Shroud of Turin. A linen cloth bearing the faint image of a man, front and back. The Shroud of Turin. For centuries, believers have claimed it's the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. The image shows a man with wounds consistent with crucifixion. No pigment, no brush strokes, just a discoloration of the fibers. Carbon dating in 1988 suggested it was made between 1260 and 1390, labeling it a medieval forgery. But critics of the test point out that the sample may have been taken from a repaired section, contaminated with newer fibers. More recent studies suggest the image may have been created by a burst of radiation or intense heat, something we still can't replicate. Debate continues. Faith and science collide on a piece of cloth, and neither side can claim absolute victory. Mystery the 35, the Copper Scroll, revisited emphasis. Let's revisit that metal map. Imagine the weight of it in your hands. Hammered copper, over 2,000 years old, describing buried treasure in cubit measurements and archaic Hebrew. 64 hiding places, gold, silver, sacred objects. A fortune beyond imagination. Treasure hunters have searched. Archaeologists have analyzed. Linguists have translated. But the landmarks are gone. The Temple Mount has been rebuilt. Jerusalem destroyed and rebuilt. The land reshaped by war and time. If the treasure was real, it's likely lost forever, unless someone, someday, stumbles upon a cache of ancient gold and realizes they've found the contents of the Copper Scroll. Until then, it remains a tantalizing maybe. Mystery 36. The disappearance of the Indus Valley Civilization. Around 2500 BC, the Indus Valley Civilization flourished in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Advanced cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro had grid layouts, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized weights, and even early plumbing. Then, around 1900 BC, it all collapsed. The people abandoned their cities, no signs of invasion. No evidence of natural disaster overwhelming enough to destroy an entire civilization. Some researchers suggest climate change, the drying of rivers. Others point to disease or internal strife. The Indus script remains undeciphered, so we can't read their own accounts. They simply vanished. A civilization of millions. Gone. Their cities remained, empty shells, until archaeologists uncovered them millennia later. Und mystery 37. The Rongorongo script on Easter Island, the same place as the giant Moai. There's another mystery. Wooden tablets covered in glyphs called Rongorongo. They're one of the very few independent writing systems ever developed. But no one alive can read them. When Europeans arrived in the 1700s, the islanders had the tablets but had already lost the ability to read them. Disease, slave raids, and cultural collapse had erased the knowledge. Linguists have tried to decipher the script using patterns and comparisons to Polynesian languages. Some symbols clearly represent fish, birds, plants, but full sentences, grammar, meaning, all lost. The tablets are fragile, scattered in museums worldwide. A written language from a remote island, silenced forever. Mystery 38. The Fuente Magna Bowl. Found near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, the Fuente Magna Bowl is a large ceramic vessel covered in strange inscriptions. Some of the symbols resemble ancient Sumerian cuneiform. If authentic, it would suggest contact between Sumerian culture and pre-Columbian South America. An impossibility according to mainstream history. Skeptics call it a hoax. The script could be random, decorative, or a later forgery. But the bowl itself is old, and some researchers insist the symbols are too specific to be accidental. If Sumerians somehow crossed the Atlantic or Pacific thousands of years ago, it would rewrite the history of navigation and cultural exchange. The bowl sits in a museum, controversial and unexplained, a potential key to a past we didn't know existed. Mystery. Sha 39. The Los Lunas Decalogue Stone. On a remote hillside in New Mexico, there's a large stone inscribed with text. The Los Lunas Decalogue Stone. The inscription appears to be an ancient form of Hebrew, and the text is a version of the Ten Commandments. If genuine, it would suggest Hebrews or Phoenicians reached North America over 1,000 years before Columbus. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss it as a hoax, likely carved in the 19th or early 20th century by settlers or students. But the weathering on the letters suggests significant age. Some symbols match Paleo-Hebrew. The location is isolated, not near any tourist paths. Why would someone carve an elaborate fake in the middle of nowhere? Believers see it as proof of ancient transoceanic travel. Skeptics see a prank that got out of hand. The stone remains, waiting for definitive proof, one way or the other. Mystery. 40. The Michigan relics between 1890 and 1920, thousands of clay and slate tablets were found across Michigan, covered in symbols that appeared to be ancient writing. The Michigan relics. They depicted Old World figures, Christian imagery, and cuneiform-like scripts, suggesting pre-Columbian contact with the Middle East. Scholars quickly labeled them frauds, pointing to anachronisms and inconsistencies. The sheer number, over $10,000, seemed suspicious, yet they keep appearing. Some are crude, obviously fake. Others are sophisticated, showing wear and artistic skill. Were they all hoaxes? Created by whom and why? Or were a few genuine artifacts mixed in with fakes, obscuring the truth? Most are now in storage, considered embarrassments, but a few researchers still wonder if something real was buried in the noise. Mystery. Chapter 41. The Kensington Runestone. In 1898, a Swedish farmer in Minnesota claimed to have found a large stone covered in runes. The Kensington Runestone. The inscription describes a group of Norse explorers who traveled to the area in 1362, over 100 years before Columbus. Mainstream historians call it a hoax, likely carved by Scandinavian immigrants. The language is a mix of Swedish, Norwegian, and runic symbols, inconsistent with 14th century dialects. But supporters argue the dialect could reflect a regional or evolving language. Weathering tests suggest the carvings are old, and Vikings did reach North America around 1000 AD. We know that from Lance aux Meadows. Could another group have ventured farther inland? The debate has raged for over a century. The runestone sits in a museum, a symbol of either historical fraud or an inconvenient truth. Mystery. Data 42. The Oak Island Money Pit. Off the coast of Nova Scotia lies a small island with a legendary secret, the Oak Island Money Pit. Since the late 1700s, treasure hunters have dug into the island, finding layers of logs, stone, clay, and mysterious markers. Some believe pirate treasure is buried there. Others think it's the lost jewels of Marie Antoinette, or Templar relics, or even the original manuscripts of Shakespeare. The pit floods when excavated, as if designed with booby traps. People have died searching. Millions of dollars have been spent, and nothing conclusive has been found. Artifacts have been pulled up, coins, metal fragments, old tools, but no treasure. Either it's an elaborate natural sinkhole that fooled generations, or someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide something. The mystery endures, and the digging continues. Mystery, Adenosaker 43, the Tekaxitl-Calixtlahuaca Head. In 1933, archaeologist José García Payón excavated a burial site in Tekaxitl-Calixtlahuaca, Mexico, dating to around 1200 AD. Among the offerings was a small terracotta head. The problem? It appeared to be Roman. The style, the craftsmanship, the features, all consistent with Roman art from around the 2nd or 3rd century AD. How did a Roman artifact end up in a pre-Columbian Mexican grave? Skeptics suggest it was planted, either as a prank or contamination, but the burial site was undisturbed and documented. Supporters argue it's evidence of transatlantic contact centuries before Columbus. Art experts who examined it said it's stylistically Roman. But without a clear provenance, it remains controversial. Is it proof of ancient voyages or an elaborate misunderstanding? Mystery. 44. The Maine Penny. In the 1950s, an amateur archaeologist discovered a small silver coin at a Native American site in Maine. The coin was Norwegian, minted between 1065 and 1080 AD. The Maine Penny. It's the only confirmed Norse artifact found in the United States outside of Lance aux Meadows. Did Vikings travel as far south as Maine? Or was the coin traded among Native American tribes, passing hand to hand over centuries? The site also contained other European and native artifacts, complicating the picture. The penny is genuine. Its presence in Maine is not. Without more evidence, we're left with a single coin and 1,000 questions. It's a tiny piece of metal that suggests a much larger story we've barely glimpsed. Mystery. 45. The Ica Stones. In the 1960s, a Peruvian doctor named Javier Cabrera began collecting stones from the Ica region. Thousands of them. The Ica stones. They were engraved with images of dinosaurs, advanced surgery, maps of lost continents, and humans interacting with extinct animals. If real, they would shatter every timeline we have. Mainstream archaeology dismisses them as hoaxes. Local farmers admitted carving some for tourists, but Cabrera insisted many were genuine, found in ancient tombs. The imagery is too detailed, too consistent, he argued. Skeptics point out anachronisms and factual errors. Believers see suppressed evidence of ancient advanced civilizations. Without controlled excavations or clear provenance, the stones remain in limbo. Fascinating, disturbing, and impossible to verify. Mystery, Chapter 46, the Acámbaro figures. In 1944, a German shopkeeper in Acámbaro, Mexico, claimed to have unearthed over 30,000 ceramic figurines. The Acámbaro figures. Many depicted dinosaurs, stegosaurs, brachiosaurs, creatures that went extinct millions of years before humans existed. Others showed humans interacting with these creatures. If authentic, they would demolish our understanding of history. Carbon dating on organic material trapped in the clay suggested they were ancient, but archaeologists found inconsistencies. The clay was fresh. The style was inconsistent. Many believe they were created by locals for profit or as a prank. But 30,000 figurines? That's an enormous effort for a hoax. Whether genuine artifacts or modern fabrications, the sheer volume and detail remain puzzling. Mystery Chapter 47. The Kingoody Artifact. In 1844, workers quarrying stone near Kingoody, Scotland, found a nail embedded in solid rock. The stone was from the Devonian period, roughly 400 million years old. The Kingoody artifact, a nail, in stone that predates the first land animals. The nail was corroded but identifiable. Witnesses testified to its discovery. It was displayed, then lost. Skeptics argue it fell into a crack and was later mistaken as embedded. Believers point to other out-of-place artifacts found in ancient strata. Without the original object, we can't test it. We're left with historical accounts and a question. Can modern objects end up in ancient rock through natural processes? Or is there something wrong with our dating methods? Mystery. 48. The Dorchester Pot. In 1851, blasting operations in Dorchester, Massachusetts broke open a solid rock. Inside was a metallic vessel, bell-shaped, decorated with floral designs and inlaid with silver. The rock was estimated to be 600 million years old. The Dorchester Pot. The object was examined by experts and featured in Scientific American, but then it disappeared. We have only descriptions and sketches. Skeptics suggest it was misidentified or the rock's age was wrong. Supporters say it's proof of pre-human advanced civilizations. It's another lost artifact, another unsolved case, another story that teases at impossible truths. Mystery Chapter 49. The Mayan Astronaut. In the ancient Mayan city of Palenque, there's a stone slab covering the tomb of King Pakal. Carved into the slab is an intricate image. Mayans saw it as Pakal descending into the underworld. But in the 1960s, some observers noticed something else. Turn the carving on its side, and it looks like a man operating a spacecraft. Hands on controls, feet on pedals, flames behind. It became known as the Mayan astronaut. Believers in ancient alien contact point to it as evidence. Mainstream archaeologists explain the traditional interpretation. It's symbolic, religious, mythological. But the resemblance is uncanny. Coincidence? Pareidolia, or a record of something we're not ready to accept. The slab is still there, and depending on how you look at it, it tells two very different stories. Mysteries Chapter 50. The Laetoli Footprints Anomaly. In Tanzania, preserved in volcanic ash, 6 million years old, are footprints. The Laetoli footprints. They were made by early hominins, Australopithecus afarensis, walking upright. It's one of the most important finds in human evolution. But there's a strange detail. Among the ancient prints, some researchers claim to have found a footprint that looks modern, a clear heel, arch, and toe definition that matches Homo sapiens, not Australopithecus. If true, it would mean modern humans existed millions of years earlier than we thought. Mainstream science attributes it to erosion, overlap, or misidentification. The footprint isn't well documented in peer-reviewed literature, but photos exist. And once again, we're faced with something that shouldn't be there, but is. So there they are, 50 mysteries, 50 cracks in the certainty of history. Some may have explanations we just haven't found yet. Others might be hoaxes, exaggerations, or misinterpretations, but many are real, verified, and utterly baffling. Why do these mysteries persist? Because archaeology is not a perfect science. We dig up fragments of the past and try to assemble them into a coherent story. But what if we're missing pieces? What if entire chapters were lost to time, erosion, conquest, and fire? What if ancient people knew things we've forgotten, built things we can't replicate, and traveled farther than we've imagined? Every one of these mysteries challenges the narrative. The Antikythera Mechanism suggests the Greeks had technology we didn't credit them with. Göbekli Tepe pushes back the origins of civilization by thousands of years. The Piri Reis map implies cartographic knowledge that shouldn't exist. And the rest, the batteries, the skulls, the stones, the carvings, all whisper the same question: what else don't we know? Science tries to solve them. Carbon dating, chemical analysis, satellite imaging, computer modeling. And slowly, some mysteries yield answers. But for every answer, 3 more questions arise. The deeper we dig, the stranger it gets. And maybe that's the point. Maybe history isn't a straight line. Maybe it's a spiral looping back on itself, full of cycles we don't yet see. Here's what all these mysteries have in common. They remind us that we are not the pinnacle. We like to think we're the smartest, most advanced humans who ever lived. We have smartphones, space stations, and quantum computers. But our ancestors moved stones we can't move, carved rock we can't carve, navigated seas we thought impassable. And in some cases, they did it without metal, without machines, without the supposed advantages of modernity. These mysteries are humbling. They're invitations to wonder. They ask us to consider that intelligence and ingenuity are not inventions of the 21st century. They've always been here, woven into the human story from the beginning. And if we've lost knowledge, if techniques and wisdom vanished with empires, what does that say about us? Are we builders or inheritors? Creators or caretakers of a legacy we barely understand? Every artifact, every site, every unsolved riddle is a message from the past. Not in words, but in stone and metal and myth. And the message is simple. We were here. We mattered. We built. We dreamed. We reached for something greater. And maybe, just maybe, we succeeded in ways you've forgotten. 50 mysteries. 50 moments where the past refuses to fit neatly into our textbooks. Some will be solved. Some may never be. And some might reveal truths so profound, they'll reshape everything we thought we knew. The next time you see an ancient statue or a crumbling pyramid, ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What stories are locked in that stone? What hands carved it, and what thoughts filled their minds as they worked? History is not a closed book. It's a puzzle with missing pieces, and every discovery, every excavation, every new technology brings us closer to the picture. But it also shows us how much is still hidden, because the earth is deep and time is long, and secrets don't give themselves up easily. Somewhere beneath the soil, beneath the ocean, beneath the ice, there are answers waiting, artifacts we haven't found, cities we haven't uncovered, truths we haven't imagined. And maybe that's the greatest mystery of all. Not what we've lost, but what we've yet to find. The question isn't whether the past has more secrets, it's whether we're ready to face them. Because once you start pulling on these threads, the whole fabric of history begins to unravel. And what's underneath might be stranger, older, and more wondrous than anything we've been taught. So keep questioning, keep wondering, because the only thing more dangerous than not knowing is thinking you already do.